What is going on, everyone? I am back, and today I wanted to do something pretty unique, and that is attempt to have the perfect draft. And that's right, you heard me right, the perfect draft. So, what does that include? Well, pretty much what I want to do is control a group of 12 teams, so 12 man league in a PPR format, and be able to make the selection for every single team, 1 through 12, for 8 rounds. So that way I will control, the full outcome, and at every single pick, be able to process the information that's happened before, after, weigh the rankings that I personally have, and go ahead and put the strongest possible roster for every single team. So, with that said, let's see how we do. And I'm going to get this kicked off. But before we begin, I want to mention the format. As you can see, I'm going to list every single team up at the top, then the player selected, what time or what week they have their bye, and as far as what kind of format in terms of roster we have the standard one quarterback, two running back, two receiver, tight end, flex, and I'm including only one bench player. And the reason I'm doing that is obviously we could fill out a bench with 5 or 6 guys and include the defense or kicker, but I do think that at this point, with 8 rounds in the books, you will have the core of your roster, and you will be able to grade your roster pretty well already. So there will be a little bit of reaching on the quarterback and tight end position just to fill out the roster at the end, but that's the way it is. So with that being said, let's get into it and start the picking. So with the first pick overall, Team One selects none other than David Johnson, my number one guy. Like him over Le'Veon, but still Le'Veon Bell, the number two guy, no question about it. Um, so we're going to keep it going. Team three, again, pretty easy choice. Antonio Brown with Ezekiel Elliott suspended becomes the next top guy. And you're going to see the top three receivers go right now with Odell Beckham at 4, Julio Jones at 5. Um, Odell Beckham went before Julio just because the injury concerns with Julio a little bit, and with the offensive coordinator leaving Atlanta. Now, Team Six, we see maybe the first little surprise and bump up in in the other running backs because of the Zeke suspension, and that is Melvin Gordon going. Uh, like him, if this was a standard league, you wouldn't see this, but because it is PPR, he gets that bump here. And moving on forward, we're going to see another group of receivers start to go. AJ Green, a stud, unfortunately got injured last year, but hopefully back 100% healthy. Should be a top 5 guy for the receivers. Next, teammate, you could have made the argument AJ Green, Mike Evans, who's better, but this is how it works out. AJ Green just has a little bit more experience, and he's done it for a little bit longer and a more consistent level. Mike Evans just had his breakout year last year. Hopefully, he'll continue that. So this is where we have Mike Evans going 8th overall. Now with the 9th pick overall, again, a guy Shady McCoy, and gets a definite boost because of PPR. Maybe a little bit lower than what some other people have him ranked where he's going, but this is a league where we're valuing the receivers, the top-notch receivers, a little bit more. This is the reason that Shady McCoy is going here. Team 10, Jordy Nelson. For me, Jordy, again, right after Jordy, probably you get that drop in receivers a little bit in that like tier 1 and tier 1A drop. So we like Jordy playing with Green Bay, playing with Aaron Rodgers, most importantly, a touchdown monster. Then almost to the end of the first round, the 11th pick, going to go ahead, pick Devonta Freeman. He drops a little bit just because he shares playing time with Tavon Coleman, but an excellent PPR option nonetheless. Team 12, to have the first round concluded, going to go ahead, take Michael Thomas. Going to get more targets with Cooks gone, hopefully, and at the same time, do better than he did surprisingly his rookie year. So build on that. Plenty of targets in New Orleans, and again, a good option in PPR. With that, let's get it in the second round. Again, Team 12 is up, and Could have gone back-to-back receiver, but wanted to address the running back position because if we wait 20 more picks, we will have a pretty weak group of running backs. So didn't want that to be the case. Identified Jordan Howard as a guy that I want to go after. Could have flipped the coin between him and DeMarco Murray, but I like Howard a little bit more, a little bit younger, and doesn't have that competition behind him. Next, I mentioned DeMarco Murray. It was too enticing not to pair him up here with Devonta Freeman, both PPR studs. Murray coming off a great year in Tennessee, so hopefully he can duplicate that again. Next, Team 10 already had Jordy, and it's kind of similar situation to before. I knew if I didn't address the running back spot here, there'd be a big drop off. So go ahead, pick the next best available guy, G.A. Double-digit touchdown potential, over 1,000 yards. Hopefully, he just stays clear of all those or of that concussion issue he had in the preseason. Next, already had LaShawn McCoy with on Team 9. Gonna go ahead and add T.Y. Hilton. The concern here is maybe only that is Andrew Luck going to be 100% healthy? Obviously, T.Y.'s value drops a little bit if that is not the case, and that's partially why you see him go almost mid-second round. Next, add a guy that, in my eyes, is just the next best available player. Could have had a guy like Marshawn Lynch or Dez or Doug Baldwin, but I think Gronk outscores all of them when it's all said and done. Obviously, you've got the injury concerns, but do think he'll stay healthy for the majority of the season, so going to go ahead, bank on Gronk. Then Team 7, Leonard Fournette has been getting a lot of buzz, and to some point, deservedly so. The only concern is that Jacksonville offensive line, but this guy, again, kind of like Ajayi, kind of like Lynch, has the double-digit touchdown potential, over 1,000 yards. Then Team 6, I mentioned Dez Bryant. We had already taken Melvin Gordon. Could have loaded up on running backs, but again, the worry was if we wait until the third round and select our first receiver, then there will be a drop-off in that group, and I would argue that group is, as a tandem, more important than the running backs. So go ahead, add Dez Bryant. Then I've been mentioning Marshawn Lynch. He goes here almost at the end of round 2 to Team 5. So you pair up Lynch with Julio. Very good tandem. Team 4, Todd Gurley paired up with Odell. So with Gurley, obviously had a very disappointing year last year. In terms of skill set, he's very skilled, but what's holding him back is playing for the Rams. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. But if he bounces back to his rookie year, he's a steal at the end of the second round. Now, this is where maybe a little bit of a shocker. You see the asterisk next to Ezekiel Elliott's name. Obviously, that's a 6-game suspension. Don't know if it's going to get shortened. I've been hearing that it probably wouldn't, or if it does, it's only by a game or two. So I think end of the second, early third, good spot for Ezekiel Elliott. And the thinking here was, well, I could go for a guy like maybe Lamar Miller or a stud receiver, but what I'm going to do instead is, hopefully when Zeke comes back, I'm going to have the top 3 running back and top 3 receiver in all of fantasy football and build my roster for a playoff run. So next, I mentioned one of those stud receivers that we could have had, Keenan Allen. So the only reason that didn't add him Team 3 is because he already had Antonio Brown and wanted to get that running back and was scared that Ezekiel Elliott wouldn't be available in the third. So instead, Keenan Allen goes here with Team 2, excellent PPR option, just has to stay healthy. Team 1, to conclude the second round, going to go ahead, take DeAndre Hopkins. As long as Houston figures out their situation at quarterback, Hopkins should thrive. He is top 5 talent in terms of receiver in this league. what's holding him back is the quarterback play. But I think with Watson there, Hopkins will get some help and he'll bounce back to what he did 2 years back. Now, we go with that into the third round, and again, Team 1 has its pick. Going to go ahead, add another receiver. Already have David Johnson, and anyone we add to that in terms of running back is going to get helped by Johnson. So instead, we're going to add another receiver and Brendan Cooks. Really like the value, early third round, and playing with Brady, he can explode. Hopefully becomes one of his favorite targets. So we get Hopkins, we get Cooks and Johnson. Really like the tandem here, or I should say the triplets formed here. Then with Team 2, we just came back from picking Keenan Allen, and what we're going to follow that up is by getting another PPR stud in Doug Baldwin. Maybe a little bit late in some people's eyes, but I don't really have him as a top 10 receiver. I have him just outside the top 10 receivers. And for me, it's because Seattle is a little bit inconsistent. He has those up really big games and then sometimes kind of low scoring games. Seattle finds themselves in low scoring affairs, especially in those divisional games. That's why he goes here, but nonetheless, excellent value. Then with Team 3, go with Lamar Miller. Would have liked to address another position, but kind of forced my hand of my own doing, taking Miller because I took Elliott already. So you already see Zeke's name, but Lamar Miller is the starting running back on this team, at least for the first 6 weeks. Then with Team 4, going to go ahead, add Amari Cooper as the third pick overall, third pick in the third, or fourth pick in the third round, and a guy that's young, playing alongside Carr. Things are looking up in Oakland, so I really like the potential here. I think he has one of those breakout years and excellent pairing with Odell. Then another guy that gets his value in PPR, that is Jarvis Landry. Like the situation a little bit better now with Cutler there, more down the field chances, and a guy that'll probably get 100 points just from his receptions alone. Next, we already had Melvin Gordon, Dez Bryant tandem. Let's add Demaryius Thomas to that. Another big physical guy, and you saw it even when Denver was a mess last year. He still had a pretty good year, and we're hoping that after this quarterback competition, things will get better for him and Sanders. Excuse me. Now moving on to the 7th pick in the third round, we've got Terrell Pryor being selected. Another kind of PPR selection, and here he goes to Washington, becomes the number 1 guy. We think Kirk Cousins is going to have another pretty good passing year, and Pryor is going to be the main target there as long as he just has to stay healthy. Next, so here, this is a little bit of the downfall. We had Evans, we had Gronk, 2 studs in their own respective categories, but we are very low in the running back position and definitely an important position. So going to go ahead, maybe reach a little bit, take Christian McCaffrey, third round rookie, has some concerns in terms of how much playing time is he actually going to get. Red zone issues with Cam and Stewart being there, but because it is PPR, like the value over here. Next, we're going to go and add Alshon Jeffrey. Could get another running back like, a Bilal Powell, a Ty Montgomery, but there's some concerns there. There's more questions there than they are with a guy like Alshon Jeffrey. So for that reason, go with Jeffrey, pair him up with Ty. And I like this because Jordan Matthews left Philly, so more targets for Alshon. Then Team 10, again, similar situation. Want to take the best available player, and this is where you see your first quarterback. I'm going to go ahead, take Rodgers, who's going to be the top scoring fantasy quarterback, and pair him up with Jordy so you get that quarterback to receiver boost. Then you see we had already filled our 2 running backs in Team 11, so what are we going to do next? We're going to hit the receiver position. We're going to hit it hard. Go ahead, take Julian Edelman, a PPR guy. Going to have his value a little bit lessened because of Cooks, but still one of Brady's favorite targets. And then concluding the third round, I mentioned Bilal Powell. Gonna go ahead, select him, pair him up with Jordan Howard, and really like the potential here because he is pretty much the best pass catcher the Jets have, and I do think he'll overtake Forte at some point in the season. Now, starting around 4, again, Team 12 is picking, and what we're going to do here, I know if we waited later on, we would not have our pick in tight ends, so take the best available tight end left, and that is Travis Kelce. Very good pass catcher as well, so him, Michael Thomas, good combination, and I like what I've done so far. Next, Team 11, again, maybe could go with a guy like Greg Olsen, but instead, let's fill out that receiver position, and it's going to hit tight end later on. So we're going to get Tyreek Hill, a guy that personally I value a lot, brings things to the table in terms of special teams. Macklin is gone, so him and Kelce are going to get more targets. That's why we have Tyreek Hill over here. Next, again, could have had a guy like Greg Olsen here. I'm going to keep mentioning his name, but instead, let's add a running back that at this point becomes kind of a steal, and that is Isaiah Crowell in Cleveland. Maybe a little bit late, but I think what's holding him back is just that he's playing on the Browns. They tried to help their offensive line in the offseason, so hopefully he gets some more opportunities, but so far, not a bad roster at all. Then Team 9, going to go ahead, add Ty Montgomery. Excellent PPR option. He made the change from receiver to running back. The knock on him is that the Packers did draft 3 running backs earlier on, and I've been hearing a lot of noise about Williams pushing Montgomery, but hopefully that won't be the case. Then teammate, we already have a tight end. Don't want to reach on another running back like a Gillislee or something like that, or a Dalvin Cook. Instead, going to go with Martavis Bryant. He has a much bigger sample size, just has to stay on the field, and is Big Ben's second favorite target outside of Brown. Next, let's add another running back here to Team 7. We already have Fournette, but he is a rookie, so pair him up with Carlos Hyde, a veteran. Just has to stay healthy. You saw what he did last year when he was healthy. Definitely has that potential to be a good scoring running back. Then I've been mentioning this name over and over, Greg Olsen. Maybe it would have been a little bit too early to select him right at the start of the 4th round. So he goes midway in the 4th round. I think that's a good place for him. There's more weapons in Carolina now. Cam, not necessarily the most accurate guy. I know Olsen has put back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. That's why I do love him. But he is getting another year older. Nonetheless, I think this is excellent value, and I really like the triplets here with Bryant, DT, and Olsen. Next, probably would have taken Olsen here if he had lasted, but what I'm going to do instead, take Devontae Adams, playing in Green Bay, playing with Rodgers, had a breakout year last year. No reason to think that won't be able to duplicate that again. Then, Team 4, taking a little bit of a gamble with Jordan Reed, but that is what we're going to go with. He just has to stay healthy. A lot of people have him ranked as the second best tight end, but injury concerns hold him back. If he does stay healthy, excellent pickup right here in the 4th round. Then Team 3 hit on running backs and back-to-back picks, so let's go back to the receiver position. I like Michael Crabtree. He has led the Raiders in touchdowns the last 2 seasons. Maybe he'll get a hit on that a little bit this year, but still one of Carr's favorite targets nonetheless. Then almost to the end of the 4th round, let's add Mark Ingram to our list of Le'Veon Bell, Keenan Allen, and Doug Baldwin. Would be a lot more valuable if Peterson hadn't joined the Saints, but Ingram still is getting first-team reps and will probably be the starter and be sharing time with Peterson. And again, a good PPR option. Team 1, Ending the fourth round, I mentioned Dalvin Cook, and I don't like taking rookies this early, but do need to address the running back position. We already have David Johnson, so like I said before, anyone that we add to this will be balanced out by Johnson. Gonna go ahead, select Dalvin Cook. Um, he's been getting a lot of rave about his play, and that's been because Latavius Murray has been hurt, but I do think at some point he had a second round pick invested in him, so he will be the starter in Minnesota at some point. With that, we've got round five starting, and with round five, go ahead and again, team one is on the clock, and let's add a stud quarterback, kind of like the situation was with Rodgers. Looking at the next best available player, I've already got David Johnson, who's going to be the top player in all of fantasy. Guys in Cooks and Hopkins, probably top 10 in their position or top 15. So let's add Drew Brees, who will probably be the second best quarterback in all of fantasy this year. Then team two, you've kind of start looking around, and Golden Tate is still on the board. A good PPR option, kind of up and down in Detroit. They have some low scoring affairs, but Stafford is viable to go off at any point. Definitely, Golden Tate is a slot guy that has a lot of value. It's just that hopefully this year they don't find themselves in so many comeback situations that they rely on scoring late in the game. But still, really good value for a flex guy. And if you look at your pass catchers, all PPR studs, just as well as the running back. So I really like the way that this roster is shaping out. Then, similar approach to before in terms of quarterbacks. We've already got Zeke, we've got Brown. Let's add Tom Brady to the mix. And we find ourselves loaded at quarterback, running back, and receiver. Then team four, we've been ignoring the running back position after we took Gurley a little bit, and we had loaded up on this pass catchers. So let's add Danny Woodhead. Gets a little bit boost because the other running back injury in Baltimore, but again, excellent PPR option. Will be one of the main guys in Baltimore as runners and as pass catchers. Then team five, I mentioned Mike Gillislee's name before. Going to pair him up here with Marshawn Lynch. Lasted until the fifth round. Didn't want to reach on him before. So again, going to New England as a free agent has the potential to place LeGarrette Blount. So I like the value that I'm getting for him here in the fifth round. Then team six, going to add a second running back to help Melvin Gordon out. That is Spencer Ware. And with Ware, there's concerns mainly that Kareem Hunt's going to take his spot. But look at what he did when he was the main guy without Charles there. And that is be their lead running back and also be an elite catcher as well. So I like the value here, especially if he stays the main guy. Then team seven, going to go ahead, look at the flex position in the fifth round. I like Larry Fitzgerald. Not a lot of people are talking about him, but you saw what he did at the first couple weeks last season. He was leading pretty much like all receivers outside of Brown in like targets and things like that. So I like Larry Fitzgerald here as a flex. Next, teammate, we're weak on the running backs. We're doing very well on the pass catchers. So hitting that running back position, going with Frank Gore, more of a standard guy, but in the fifth round, not bad value, probably good for 1,000 yards and 6 or 7 touchdowns. Then team nine, I mentioned, having filled out running back and receiver spots and kind of letting things play out, and that's exactly what happens here. Allen Robinson, young guy, Jacksonville, hopefully looking to bounce back. Blake Bortles, hopefully going to figure it out finally, and Robinson can go back to 2 years ago when he had that breakout year himself. Then team 10, let's go ahead. We've hit running back, filled that out, hit quarterback. We've got our number one receiver. Let's add Calvin Benjamin to the mix. A guy that has a lot of potential, hopefully can repeat his rookie year, and remains Cam's favorite target. Big guy, physical guy. Sometimes struggles with drops, but fifth round, good potential. Next, Team 11. I mentioned Emmanuel Sanders before, and the reason he gets a little bit of a drop here in his rankings is because he plays with Demaryius Thomas, and the quarterback situation isn't 100% known in Denver, but nonetheless, a good option if he is your flex guy, and someone you can rely on to at least get you like 10 or 11 points every single week. Next, we already have our running back set here. We've got Michael Thomas. We got Travis Kelce. Let's fill out the receiver spot. Go ahead, grab Brendan Marshall, playing with the best quarterback of his career in Eli, opposite Odell Beckham. I like him to get close to 1,000 yards, and that's pretty good value for the end of the 5th round. Now, start round 6, and again, Team 12 is up. Let's add to the flex position. Add Pierre Garcon. Don't like the situation in San Fran in terms of the quarterback and the offense, but he is reunited with Shanahan and is a sneaky guy to have a breakout year. Next, Team 11. We've been ignoring the tight end position, but that's all right. We're going to go ahead, pick Tyler Eifert and a guy in Cincinnati that, outside of AJ Green, he's the main guy, and you saw what he did last year when he was healthy. So really like the potential with Tyler Eifert. Next, let's add Theo Riddick here as a flex. Good, again, PPR option. If Abdullah gets hurt, becomes the main guy as well. And kind of adding him as insurance because Ajayi and Crow maybe not the most reliable, but nonetheless, very good pass catcher as well in Theo Riddick. Then, Team 9, we're going to start seeing a little bit of a run on tight ends, and that is what is reflected with Kyle Rudolph, who quietly puts back-to-back top 5 tight end ranking seasons, and that's why he goes here. Didn't want to reach on a quarterback, and was someone we wanted to address in terms of a position before starting adding to the bench. Next, teammate goes with Willie Snead for their flex play. Already have a stellar group of pass catchers, and adding Snead to the mix elevates that even more. Love what he presents in New Orleans alongside Drew Brees. Team 7, again, tight end. We're going to see this run a little bit now. Delaney Walker, very reliable, probably Mariota's favorite target on that offense. So going to bank on him continuing to stay consistent. Now, Jamison Crowder, again, his name hasn't really come up until now. I think that's due to a variety of reasons. Don't know how he's going to react to a new offense in Washington with all those new players around him. We'll see what Cousins does, but again, a guy that brings value in special teams. Had a pretty good year last year, kind of up and down. But if there are injuries on that offense, Crowder benefits greatly. Next, Team 5, going to go ahead and add Andrew Luck. And Luck dropped this far because there are concerns about his injuries. Apparently, he will still be on path to play week 1, but don't know what the case will be. But if he is 100% healthy, probably going to be a top 5 quarterback, top 4 even. So addressing the quarterback position right here. And then Team 4, let's go ahead, add to the flex, add Dante Moncrief in the final year of his rookie contract. So I think he's going to ball out. Team 3, we're adding Adrian Peterson, and this is more for insurance for that Ezekiel Elliott pick. Not 100% sold on Lamar Miller, so I'm going to have Adrian Peterson and fill him in while Zeke is out there, suspended. Next, Team 2, let's go ahead and add Martellus Bennett to our tight ends, a guy that I'm sneakily very high on. I think he's going to do great things with Rodgers, and just wanted to kind of secure him now before anyone else has the chance to. And finishing off the 6th round, we have Jimmy Graham being selected, a guy that could potentially be a top 5 tight end, building another year of rapport with Russell Wilson. He had a pretty good year last year, up and down, but Still, I think, good red zone threat. Now, with that, let's start round 7. And with round 7, the first selection, Matt Forte, kind of similar to Bilal Powell, but he is older. He, you know, is a guy that is battling some injuries. So, still, I think he is a good flex play. Again, I mentioned the situation with the Jets. They have no one catching the ball except their running back. So, in terms of that, a good pickup here in the 7th round. Next, we move on. I'm gonna add Russell Wilson and pair him up to Doug Baldwin. So we get that quarterback receiver combo. Not a bad value at this point in the 7th round. And this is interesting here. 7th round, we see Darren McFadden being added, and again, it's the team that drafted Ezekiel Elliott. Definitely should have handcuffed him. I think this is the way that it should be. So this way we have Darren McFadden combined with Ezekiel Elliott. Those guys probably are a top 5 running back option. Now, here we could have added bench player or quarterback. Went ahead, picked Cam Newton, a guy that hopefully has a bounce back year, stays healthy, and can return to MVP form. Next, hitting the tight end position. Now you're going to see that run, maybe a little bit reaching on some guys to fill out the roster, but Eric Ebron in Detroit, big, again, red zone target. Stafford, someone that Stafford can rely on. Next, Jameis Winston, an MVP candidate for me, and I like what the Bucs have done to help him in terms of weapons. O.J. Howard, Deshaun Jackson. So, going to go ahead, pick Jameis Winston here. Next, quarterback run continues. We add Kirk Cousins to the mix. Pair him up with Terrell Pryor. Again, get that combo. He plays every year, and his name doesn't come up as a top 5 guy, but his stats do back up a top 5 guy. So he goes underappreciated, but I think is a very good pick right here. Next, we've got Marcus Mariota, and again, it's a situation where a guy similar to Jameis Winston, have him ranked high, both as a runner and as a passer, and have added more weapons around him. So, like the pick here. Next, we had Derek Carr, and kind of just that run on quarterbacks continues. A young guy that showed last year that at one point he was in the MVP considerations when he was healthy. Then, let's add a tight end. Adding Jack Doyle here. Dwayne Allen's gone from Indy, so Doyle becomes the main guy. It'll be, him, Ty, and Dante, and I think Luck does like his tight end, so Doyle does benefit. Next, going to go ahead, select Big Ben Roethlisberger. Pretty reliable guy. I know people say he struggles on the road, but hey, he's playing with Martavius Bryant, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell. I like Big Ben. And finishing off the 7th round, we're going to go ahead, take Phillip Rivers. Again, it's a situation where I really like the offense he's in. I really like the players that he's surrounded by. And he plays in a hard division, but it is what it is. I think this is pretty good value. Now, final round, let's get into it. We're going to fill out the bench here. And a guy that dropped probably a lot in Joe Mixon. Some people might have issue with this, but I am not high on him for several reasons. First of all, he is a rookie. And he is playing behind not one running back, but 2 in Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard. I saw, he had early on nicked up his foot, and supposedly not a big issue, but with running backs, that's kind of a cause of concern. So for that reason, he falls over here. Next, Team 11 going to go ahead and end the fall of Stephon Diggs. Going to add him to the bench. Reason he fell, I think, was just because not too high on the passing in Minnesota with Sam Bradford running that show. Then Team 10, Paul Perkins, again, maybe lasted a little too long on the board, but I just don't like him as a runner in particular. I think the only reason he's ranked by some people highly is because he plays in the New York Giants offense, but no question about it. They're more passing than running, and he kind of just benefits from the situation. But I don't think he'll particularly have a good year. And if he does, though, proves me wrong. A very good pickup here. Next, Team 9, going to go ahead, fill out the bench, and get Tyrell Williams in uh, tandem with Phillip Rivers. In with the Chargers, if Keenan Allen does get injured for some reason, Tyrell Williams steps in and becomes kind of what he was last year, and that is a fantasy stud. Then I mentioned Kareem Hunt. This is kind of looking for the future pick, and that is if Spencer Ware does go uh, and become the second guy, Kareem Hunt, you can have him as your starter. Next, Doug Martin will be suspended for a couple games, but gonna go ahead, roll the dice, kind of a investment pick when he comes back. Now, we're gonna add Adam Thielen and from Minnesota to the bench. You saw what he did in the last year. I think he probably has more rapport with Bradford than Stephon Diggs did, and I really like him in terms of PPR. Maybe a guy that we can sub in on bye weeks and things like that. Team 5, we're going to go ahead, pick Rob Kelly from the Redskins. And again, going to be the main guy there. Not 100% sold on him, but if he does blow up, we do have him stashed on the team. Then Team 4, LeGarrette Blount. Banking on him having a pretty strong year in terms of touchdowns in Philly. The main guy in terms of the running backs go with Ryan Matthews now released. Then I'm going to add here to the tight end spot. We needed a tight end. Go ahead, pick Antonio Gates, one of Phillip Rivers' favorite targets, and for such a long time, but he's still getting it done. Then Team 2, adding Thomas Rawls. I've been hearing a lot of reports that he has been looking really good, and he's leading the pack for number 1 running back duties for Seattle. Then finally, let's end this with Jonathan Stewart being taken, and again, for now, he is the main guy in Carolina. Going to get some red zone carries, so not a bad pick. So with that, that concludes our perfect draft selection. Let me know what you guys thought. Scroll through the final teams, team 1 through 12. Let me know which one you guys like the best. I personally think they're all pretty balanced. I really like what we did with Ezekiel Elliott and Antonio Brown. I really like Team 1. I really like Team 2. Let me know what you guys think. And as always, like, subscribe, and look out for future videos.